How to make $1,000 a month as a side hustle and get walking exercise as a bonus for free. Yes, it can be done, and I'll show you how because I'm doing this myself. Hi, my name is David Newton. When most people think of walking, what they think of doing is maybe going out and taking the dog for a walk, or maybe just walking around the block to get a little bit of exercise, or maybe even taking a break at lunchtime at work and going out for a walk, maybe a longer walk than normal, in order to get that exercise that you need. And yes, we all need that type of exercise. However, I actually go one step further. I do run a business whereby I take my social group on history walks and art gallery walks, and sometimes even foodie walks on maybe a Saturday or a Sunday, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, and we will see different things, and we'll have a cup of coffee afterwards, and they'll pay me for that experience. Now, you might be wondering how you can make $1,000 per month out of doing social and history walks, and maybe even art gallery walks like I do. It's very simple. The maths isn't really all that mind-boggling. For example, if you've got, say, $25 per person for the walk, at the very raw minimum, you'll need around 40 people to make headway for $1,000. But allowing for a little bit of overhead, and there is a little bit of overhead, it's not very much, but just a little bit, allow for maybe, say, another 10 extra people. So 50 people going to walks each month at $25 a head will give you enough of a buffer zone, something like $1,250. Now, of course, obviously, every month that figure goes up and down, and I don't put all of that into just one single walk, although I figure probably the ideal capacity for my walks is somewhere between 15 to 30 people. Anything beyond 30 people, it gets a little bit difficult to handle, and it's better for them also if there's a smaller group. So if you're doing several of these different events, you will easily achieve that $1,000 a month as your income. Now, first of all, if you're going to make this work, you're going to need to leave aside at least one Saturday or one Sunday per month just to get the ball rolling and to set up one single event. All I did, first of all, when I first started doing this a couple of decades ago, was I lined up a few galleries. I went in and asked each one of them if they would give a little talk to my group, and I only had, believe it or not, 5 people on my first walk, and not all of the galleries agreed, but some of them did, and I walked down one street and back again, and we finished up at a cafe that we started at, although I met outside the cafe so as not to disrupt the cafe itself, but we finished up back at the cafe at the starting point, and everyone loved it. They had a good time, and even though at first it felt like I was, pulling teeth, it was a lot of work to put the whole thing together. It got easier and easier and easier subsequently as I did that one particular walk over and over again. And then I later expanded that to other different suburbs, and hey presto, I nowadays in Sydney and Melbourne, I will do walks on either a Saturday or a Sunday, depending upon the type of walk that I'm doing, and I will cover different historical aspects and different landmarks within a particular suburb, and we'll walk around for 2 or 3 hours, and we'll finish up at a coffee shop at the end, because people don't just want to split and go home, they want to chit chat afterwards, and that works out really, really well and a lot of fun. So if you can see yourself as doing something like this, it's worthwhile thinking about it, because you don't have to stare at a screen. Sure, I may do a little bit of initial research in front of a screen and find out some information about the area that I'm taking people around, but a lot of people like to know their own local neighbourhood, and a walk is a good way to enjoy that. And whilst they're out looking at all these different sites, within the group of maybe, say, 5, 10 or 15 or 20 people, they will have conversations, and those conversations will spark friendships, and those friendships will go from there. So think about it from that perspective. How do I remember so much to talk about when I'm on the walks? Now, the walks go for about 2 to 3 hours, and how I remember a lot of stuff, well, I don't try to remember too much. Sometimes I do have my notes on hand, and sometimes because I've done a particular walk, maybe 10 times or so, well, I can generally go off that pretty much off memory. But as a backup and as a general rule, I have little folders that I've made about particular areas. So just to give you a bit of an idea, I'll have maps that I've got here of the suburban areas. I'll also have like a running sheet, either because I may do some of these walks several different times over. If there's any, maybe say any road work that's going on or something like that, I may need to rejig the walk and rejig the landmarks, or maybe even cover some new items that I've never covered before. There's also a point that when you've got a lot of material to cover, you may also have additional information. Look, here I wanted to cover some historical information here about a particular early business person that was in this particular area, and I've got stories from books which I've gone to the library about and covered in that area, pictures of houses that used to be in the area, that type of thing, so that when I'm walking around I'm able to show this to my group and give them a little bit of an idea of what yesteryear was like. Here's another one here of one of my popular walks, which is about Parramatta. And yet again, I've done this walk many times over. So once again, depending upon which angle I've got for this particular walk, I've got around about 3, maybe 4 versions of this particular walk. And the reason is the area is just so huge, I'm not able to cover all of it in one walk. And secondly, if there's different things going on in the city and so forth like that in Parramatta, I may want to cover different buildings because that gives a different angle. And in addition to that, I've got pictures of buildings that were past and present. I've got pictures and details here about people that once lived in buildings that are still standing. And the story goes on and on and on. Because, I pretty well know which way to thumb my way through with this, I've also got down here where I do most of my walks in this particular suburban area. And this is one of the areas that's quite a few kilometres on the in the central part of Sydney suburbia. I've worked out here over a period of time what some of the main building locations are. Now, of course, I've got different variations and other little maps like this one as well, but it also gives a different focus so that there's always something new. If somebody's done a particular walk, they can see a different version of it at a later stage, and once again, mix and mingle. And some people just simply don't know what's in their own local area, so they love the idea of, oh, I've lived in this area before, David, I didn't know what that was like before. So as you can see, I've also got some video playing here at the moment of one of the walks that I did of Fitzroy in Melbourne, and that shows where I actually had one of the art gallery owners speak to my group. So as you can see there in the video there, he's actually conducting a conversation with everyone, explaining about the art before they take a bit of a walk through several rooms in his art gallery. So, of course, it's a commercial art gallery. They're there to sell paintings and so forth and other art items. So when I take people through, say, the art galleries, they see my people as potential prospects to sell art to, and yes, some of them do buy, maybe not on that day, but they'll come back later on to buy, and this often is the case. So there's lots of things there that you can do to make it interesting, and we always finish up at a lovely cafe at the end afterwards. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this little session here about how I make some money part-time through running these events. This is not the only one. I do run quite a lot of other different events, and I'll talk about that more in other videos coming up. This is David Newton speaking.